Greetings, YouTube. Let's talk about Antifa. Specifically, let's start with breaking down the word. Now, Antifa is shorthand for anti-fascist. And for those out there that aren't familiar with the prefix anti, it means in opposition to. Antimatter is matter, which is the opposite of conventional matter. It's a real thing. We have created it, though in tiny little quantities. Anti-fascists would be opposed to fascism. So anti-fascists can't exist unless fascists already exist. So if you were to take fascists out of the equation, and there were no fascists, then there would be no anti-fascists. There would be no Antifa. Now, this seems very elementary, and you might be thinking, James, you're talking to the audience of this video like they're children. But apparently, I have to. Because there are a whole lot of people out there wearing red caps in America that seem opposed to Antifa. So if you are opposed to anti-fascism, that means you are in support of fascism. This isn't 11th dimensional calculus. If you opposed an anti-group, it means that you are in support of what they oppose. And they oppose fascism. So all the red caps that get angry that Antifa exists and Antifa shows up at fascist rallies, the alt-right, white supremacists, the neo-Nazis, all the red caps that get upset that Antifa shows up are supporting white supremacy, which is the term I'm going to use as an umbrella to cover all the nasty things that we're discussing here. So all the red caps that are angry about this support white supremacy. I should point out that all the red caps that supported the GOP also support white supremacy. Whether they are themselves white supremacists or a member of one of the other groups I just mentioned, or they are just a water carrier for white supremacy, it doesn't matter. They still support it. There is no plausible deniability left in the year 2019. My brother-in-law that voted for the orange shitgibbon supports white supremacy, and it is why I will never speak to him again, and why I will very likely never get to see my nephews again until they are 18, for which I will owe them an apology, and I don't know if they'll be able to understand why. But Antifa can't exist, wouldn't exist, if fascism hadn't risen and essentially never gone away. Fascism has never left the world, never left America. And it's at its peak at the moment, the greatest it's ever been, both in numbers and influence, because we have a white supremacist fascist in the White House, because we have an entire Congress that until quite recently was completely supporting him, and still all the members of his party support him, because they're sure voting in line with him. And we have the Supreme Court, which is most decidedly leaning to the right in support of fascism and white supremacy. So anyone out there that's upset at Antifa's existence, or when Antifa shows up at a rally being held by fascists and white supremacists and neo-Nazis and the alt-right, needs to step back and look at what they're doing. And please remember, as an example here, in Charlottesville, Antifa didn't murder anyone. The white supremacists did. The white supremacists were rallying around a statue dedicated to a white supremacist in a continuing effort to oppress black people in those communities by leaving a white supremacist symbol in their community. Antifa didn't murder anyone that way. Antifa didn't take shots at anyone, while a white supremacist did, while a police officer watched, who did nothing. White supremacy is real. It exists. And it's an ever-present danger both in America and the world at large. And it's becoming increasingly frantic as the world becomes less and less white, as America becomes less and less Caucasian. And here's a little fun fact for you out there, all the people that might be watching this who are red caps and who are white supremacists. White people are a minority on the planet. By a large margin, we're a minority. It's just that in certain very powerful countries, we are currently the majority. But that's changing. And your grandchildren are going to live in a world where white people are just one minority amongst many. And in some places, have always been and always will be a minority. So, get used to your minority status. And how about we set up laws to make sure that everyone is protected under the law and everyone enjoys civil liberties and human rights. So that no matter who's in charge, everyone has the same privileges. Wouldn't that be nice? As opposed to, say, rallying in the streets to support white supremacist and fascist political agendas and being upset when the anti-fascists show up and tell you to shut the fuck up.